Hey everyone, I hope that you are doing super fantastic. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about aperture and f-stop. So aperture is one of the three things that's used to affect exposure. Now remember, exposure is the amount of light that it takes in order to create a photograph. So the three things that affect exposure are aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. ISO is its sensitivity to light, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But shutter speed, determines the duration of time that the aperture is open. So aperture, again, is the hole that lets the light into the camera. And with our cameras, we can actually control the size of the hole by changing its f-stop. And f-stop is essentially the measurement of the size of that hole that lets the light in. So the thing that you need to remember is the higher the f-stop number, the physically smaller the hole, which means because the hole is smaller, that less light can pass through. But the lower the f-stop number, the bigger the physical hole, the more light can pass through. Okay. So the aperture does two things. It controls how much light is let into the camera, and it controls the focal length, and that's really important. So notice right now, I'm going to move my face cam, that f1.4 is a pretty low number, but it has a really big physical aperture. And as that f-stop goes up, the size of the physical hole goes down, and the amount of light that can pass through decreases. So when we are looking at this, that f-stop and that aperture also controls the depth of field, which is really important. That depth of field is the area that is or is not in focus. So when you're taking a look at these two pictures, this lovely picture of Wall-E, if you notice, this thing in the background is pretty blurred out in comparison to this. This has a shallower depth of field, and which means it has a physically larger aperture, while this one has a deeper depth of field, which means more things that are farther away are more in focus, which means it's going to have a physically smaller aperture. So what's really important to be able to know and understand and consider, the smaller the physical aperture, the less light that gets let in, the deeper the depth of field, which means more things will be in focus and it will have a higher f-stop number. The bigger the physical aperture, the more light can pass through that hole, but the shallower the depth of field will be. All right, I hope that's helpful. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.